Okay, ready? Start. The death of Queen Elizabeth II has inevitably brought about to all tributes across the media to a woman who symbolized the notion of public service not just to Britain but around the world. Peel back the emotional displays and rhetoric, however, and we see the infantilizing effect of monarchy in a democratic age and the remnants of entitlement that infects so many British attitudes. On her 21st birthday in 1947, speaking by radio from Cape Town, she urged listeners to go forward together with an unwavering faith to make this ancient commonwealth an even grander thing, more free, more prosperous, more happy, and a more powerful influence for good in the world than it has been in the greatest days of our forefathers. She declared that her whole life, whether it be long or short, shall be devoted to your service and the service of our great imperial family to which we all belong. She would certainly keep her part of the bargain so far as service was concerned. But many would now query how great the days of empire had been, especially now the world has moved on. Only months later, the Britain passed the Independence of India Act, but it was another 3 years before India could formally shake off the trammels of empire to become a secular republic. Hackers may still rise on the subcontinent when people realize that the Kohinoor diamond with its disputed province will add on the crown worn by the new king consort Camilla at his forthcoming coronation. Although Britain flexed its muscles in Palestine, Korea, and Malaysia in the 1950s, gradually its world domination fell away during the Queen's long reign. Once Britain was humiliated by General Nasser in the Suez Crisis in 1956, the domino effect was inevitable. The desire for self-determination was evident as the wind of change swept through Africa in the 1960s and the monarchs plenipotentiaries were dispatched far and wide to run the Union Jack down flagpoles. The new king will reign over only 15 territories, including the UK. Even the 56-member Commonwealth of Nations has lost its British tag, but no amount of pomp and ceremony can disguise the fact that the UK is riven, and not just by the divisions caused by the disaster Brexit turned out to be. In England alone, less than 1% of the population own and control more than half the land. The Crown owns a massive portfolio of properties, artworks, and jewelry since 1992. The monarch pays tax on personal earnings, but the public purse shells out more than $86 million a year in sovereign grant to cover all household maintenance and travel expenses. The huge disparity between the rich and poor is widening, with the poverty far greater in the north of England than the south east. Meanwhile, the calls for Scottish independence get louder by the day, with other referendum promised next year, and the Welsh Parliament has become increasingly self-assured. On the island of Ireland, Sinn Féin, the Republican Party, is scheduled to become the biggest political party again, north and south. One of the most notable achievements of the Queen was her gracious acknowledgement in 2012 of Northern Ireland Deputy First Minister Martin McGuinness, a former commander in the Irish Republican Army, which in 1979 had assassinated her uncle Earl Mountbatten, the architect of partition in India. McGuinness saw it as a significant contribution to the peace process. He called her a remarkable woman. I hold her in great esteem for doing something that can have been easy for her. In a conciliatory speech during a visit to Dublin a year earlier, she spoke of the painful legacy of Anglo-Irish relations, and when asked later about greeting McGuinness, her answer was very British. Of course, I shook his hand. It would be awkward not to. Her equanimity and her sense of humor were perhaps her most winning characteristics. She would have needed both to survive in the dysfunctional households she presided over, according to former palace official Maclean Becker. His Scotland Disaster, a 1990 book banned in Britain, is a hair-raising account of corruption and sexual misconduct. One of the less shocking incidents was the night a drunken page boy tumbled down stairs and floored the queen as she made her way to bed. Elizabeth famously called 1992 her anxious horribles after a fire of Windsor Castle, the divorces of two of her children, and revolutions in Diana. Her true story that her son Charles was in a long-term extramarital affair with Camilla Parker's Bros. But there were other such years. In the 1980s, two of her cousins, probably dead, turned out to be alive. Catherine and Nerissa Broslin had been consigned to the Royal Earlswood Institution for Mental Defectiveness in 1941, along with the three other cousins, Etheldra, Adonna, and Rosemary Fane. Imagine what a difference it might have made to the lives of so many of the royal family had accepted these relatives instead of locking them away. Stop.